Good morning, everybody. Got a little project today that I've been wanting to tackle for a rainy day, and we've got just that today. It's pretty nasty outside, kind of like a rain sleet right now, but we've got a front coming in and we're supposed to get like, I don't know, they're calling for like 9 to 14 inches of snow, if you can believe that. So probably we'll get 3 or 4 inches out of the deal. And then in like 4 or 5 days it's supposed to be 60 degrees, but the rest of today and then in through tomorrow, weather's going to be nasty, so we're going to hunker down here and get to a project I've been wanting to get to for a while, like I said. And so that's simply welding on we'll call it a friction bollard, onto the top bar of my grapple. Here's the grapple top bar support. What I have been finding is that when I want to pull over a tree, I get lazy and I'll put like an alpine butterfly and just wrap it around the ball here, which is obviously not something that you're supposed to do, and it can slip off, and it's just not the best scenario because as it's pulling on this ball, it's actually pulling on the upper jaw of the grapple, which can put stress on your cylinder O-rings and stuff like that. This is aftermarket. I did weld this on myself just for moving trailers around, and it works really good. It's just a 1/4 inch top plate of steel, and then I made some gussets for the side, and that's just an 1 7/8 ball on there. That way I can pretty much tackle any trailer just for moving stuff around. But I've been wanting to put on a friction bollard or porter wrap, basically welded onto this upper support beam. So I ran to my local steel supply store. They sell a bunch of other things, and I think this is basically the material that we're going to need to get the job done. This is going to act as the upright. We're going to drill a 2-inch hole through this tube steel, or I guess rectangle steel here, and run the 2.5-inch tube through it, weld it on, and then the whole shoot and match will get welded onto the top here. Then we have this 1/2-inch rod here, of course, just to use as our lock-offs. Got the heater going, so it's toasty in here. So this should be a good project for the rest of the day, maybe into tomorrow. If we can get it all welded up here today, then maybe I'll paint it tomorrow, or I guess we'll just see how far we get. Not in any real hurry. So next step is drilling the 2.5-inch hole all the way through here, because I'm going to put this all the way through like so to weld it up, and then we'll have a portion of this sticking through on either side. I think this is 1 foot long. And this is 2x3, so that means we're going to have approximately 5 inches sticking out on either side, which is plenty good for what we're doing. So let's get this rigged up to drill our hole. I'm trying to determine the flatter side here. 2.5-inch hole saw. Alright, we got a hole through that. I'm just going to clean up around where we're going to be welding that, and I'm going to cap this as well at the end. I think what I'd like to do is weld this all on the tractor first, and then I can weld my tube up when this is on. I think that's the best play, but maybe not. But let's get this cleaned up anyhow. Here's how it's fitting up so far. That's the idea there. I think before we weld this on, we're going to want to drill our holes through the end here for our lock-off tabs. I think our pieces are ready to go, other than I do have to cut this rod here just in half. But we'll do that after I get the grinding done on this upper portion of the grapple, just because I have the grinding disc on the grinder right now. Alright, we got the welder set up here. I'm just going to tack this up quick, then we can get the clamp off of it. Make sure we got it where we like it, and we can burn it in. That's going to work just fine. That's that. I think we ought to just tack that in where we like it. We'll deal with the rod here in a sec. 5 inches should be good. Let's get this rod cut off now. Slide that in, get that welded up, and then all we'll have left to do as far as the welding is concerned is make a little top plate for that. It's for a little bit of structural support, but also aesthetics. Alright, I think I'd like to get this top measured up. It should be 2 by 3. Well, cool. I think that should do it as far as the welding is concerned. I'll give you a close-up of that. I haven't cleaned them up or anything. idea there. Cap's welded on. I'll clean that all up. I think I'm going to call that good enough for sanding on it. And I'd say it turned out pretty good. Couple things that I'm not pleased with. You can see it's not level there. I don't know, it must have warped. I had it better than that when I had it clamped up. I wonder once I gave it the heat if it turned on me a little bit. And I really didn't notice it until I put the tube in, but mostly aesthetics, but it's going to bother me. It's going to function just fine, I'm sure. What you see in there, can't really get at those welds to sand them, so I think I am going to slap a coat of black POR 15 on this thing right now. So let's go ahead and do that. I was debating going and testing, but it's, I don't know, pretty nasty, and I don't want this raw steel to get all rained on right now. I got it all cleaned up, so I think we'll just get the paint on it and hope that everything works out. I mean, it should be pretty stout for pulling on. Stuff you want to just go on real thin with the first coat. It's real runny too, oddly enough. Just really likes to run. We'll do 2 coats of this. Alright, so there's the first coat. So I think if I had to do this over again already, what I would do is I would weld the circular tube into the square tube first. After I cut the 2-inch hole through that 2x3 tube, I should have welded that tube up, and that would have done a couple things for me. Number one, it would have been easier to weld all the way around, if that makes sense. And then number two is that with the tube welded on, I would have had a good reference of square, which there's really no excuse. It still should have been square when I first welded it, but I just think that I had some warpage happening, and if I would have had this tube welded on, I would have noticed it and been able to kind of really correct it as I went, as I welded. Now this thing is pretty visually crooked on there, which bothers me, but I'm gonna have to live with it now, and that's the price you pay for being a DIY guy. It'll still function just fine, of course, but there's not really an efficient way of getting that thing to turn. I could take a maul to it and try bending it, but that's not really going to square it up. I'm just bending it then. So those two things is what I would do differently if I could again. Simply weld that tube in first before welding the entire assembly onto the grapple. That would have been wiser. Of course, after a project like this, you're left with a big mess on your workbench, so we're going to use a little YouTube magic here. That's better. And then the welding bench as well, I guess. It's good enough for the girls I date. Okay, welcome back. It's actually a few days later. We did get the second coat of paint on the rope bollard, so that's looking decent. We'll see how the paint holds up as the rope burns through there. It'll probably burn the paint off of the bollard, but I wanted the majority of the bracket to at least be protected from the elements. So simulating a couple tests today with this. Got a log here, green rope attached to it, which goes up to a pulley on an orange rope. This orange rope that's just locked off here on the base of this tree. The other end of the green rope then comes down through this friction ring, and then this portion we're going to lock off to the bollard and actually back up to simulate a lift of this log. And then once we get it up in the air, we'll be able to control the descent with the bollard, of course. So we're going to try that out, see if we can't either snap a rope or rip this bollard off the frame of the grapple. And then what I want to do is just do a static pull. We'll lock off the bollard and then just wrap an old rope around the base of a tree, and we'll yank it back, go about it like that. So let's get we'll get you guys set up here, and we'll see if we can't lift this log. Not a huge log. I'd guess it's probably 7 or 8 feet. This is maple and it was wet, so it's fairly heavy. We are just blocked off to a small little box elder, but it should be enough to hold this up, I hope. I guess we'll find out. I still got a little bit of snow happening. It's fairly warm, so it's melting as it hits, so I'm doing my best to keep the lens clean for you. Let's go ahead and lock this off. So there we are, locked off on the upper and lower pins of the bollard. Let's see if we can't pull this now. I guess that worked. It's up there. I can't even reach the butt right now. That log. Didn't look like we had any slippage on the bollard. It's good and tight though. So let's see now if we can comfortably and safely unlock this thing. Take one more wrap off yet. Let's just take one more off. It'll work. Super controlled. I guess that was pretty good. The only thing it did do is the rope slid all the way out to the pins, and that's because I don't have like a fair lead to guide it into the bollard, but there's really that's really not necessary. It's going to be a rare occurrence where I actually have to lower something down. I guess we'll go ahead and get this rigging out of here. You don't want to lose, like in this case, the green rope is the rigging system, so you don't want to lose that out of the pulley. That's your method for retrieving the rest of this system. Pull this the rest of the way out. We're done with it. Alright, let's just take this old orange rigging rope. It does have a bit of a buckle buck in it, so we'll keep that out of the system. Safety. Trying not to poke your eyeball on box elder shoots. Lock her off here. They're actually already pretty tight here, but we'll give it a good tug. Yeah, so that's banjo tight now. Probably tighter than I'd have any rope if I'm pulling on a tree, if I'm honest. Seems to be holding good, not much for slippage. The beauty of this system is, of course, you can pre-tension all the slack and stretch out of the rope. A lot of times when you're pulling a tree over with a machine, you've got limited backup space. Of course, we've got pretty much unlimited room here, but that's almost never the case. So traditionally, you know, when I'm setting an alpine butterfly around the ball like I was doing, you'd guess kind of where that alpine butterfly needed to rest on that ball, tie your alpine butterfly, and then pull it, wrap it around the ball. And then inevitably you've got to back up still to take the slack out of the rope. Well, that backup space, obviously you can pre-plan it into the system, but this way you can pretty much just set where exactly you need to start pulling, pre-tension all the slack and stretch out of the rope, and then start up and start pulling the tree over. If you've made it this far, I do appreciate you hanging out with me and sticking it out to the end. If you do like this kind of content, I would greatly appreciate a like and subscribe. It would really help the channel out. Otherwise, we will catch you on the next one.